Hello everybody! I welcome you to join me to some precious time in our beloved hobby. Today I'm gonna show you how I painted my Saar gang for Necromunda. This gang was laying around for some time on my pile of opportunities, since the paint job of the box art just somehow didn't click with me. I can't even tell you why, but I kinda don't like that paint scheme. But I finally got an idea that stuck to my head. In my youth, I read a lot of the Star Wars Imperial Commando books and enjoyed the old PC game about the Imperial Commandos a lot. I'm not a very big fan of Star Wars, but I always liked the armor of the Imperial Commando squad. So I reckoned, why not try to paint Saar in an Imperial Commando style scheme and also give painting white armor a plunge. You all heard it before. Painting white and black is harder than the layperson would think. While I show you how I paint these models, I will also share some painting tricks that I picked up in my time painting minis. So follow along, and if you enjoy the content, please leave a like, comment your thoughts on the painting approach and consider subscribing. That is, if you like content about painting miniatures, building terrain and playing games. But now to painting. So for my white models, I obviously started with black primer. Why black? Simply that I can tell which parts I covered with my base coat a little better. To trick the eye of the beholder into seeing white armor that isn't just flat white without any depth, one must work with different shades of grey. That's why I started base coating my models with the rather dark grey Dawnstone from Citadel. The darker grey was then almost entirely covered with the brighter grey Stonewall grey of the game color range of Vallejo in a zenithal fashion. This way the shadows stay dark and the surfaces pointing to the sun get brighter. If you don't own an airbrush, you can also achieve this look with rattle cans or by dry brushing. The previously applied midtone gets oversprayed again with an even lighter grey. However, this time I cover only the topmost surfaces to achieve highlights on the model. I used Palette Witch Flesh by Citadel for this step. At this point, the armor almost reads as white already. The problem with airbrushing is that you lose all the depth of the crevices facing upwards to the light source. To reapply those depths, I heavily diluted Ashy Stone, a speedpaint 2.0 by the Armory Painter. The consistency was somewhat like a wash or a glaze, nearly invisible but giving all the cracks a hint of depth. The first painting trick I want to show you are these bottle caps for my speed paints. I 3D printed them, all 50 in one go. After priming and gluing them on, I painted every orc head with its appropriate color. Now I can really see how the paint looks on the model instead of relying on the color on the bottle, which is utterly deceiving. The links to the free files are in the video's description. But back to the model. The application of the speed paint dulled some of the highlights. I renewed these highlights with a dry brush of the same light grey I sprayed on before. With dry brushing carefully in the correct direction, I could keep my depth achieved before. The second painting trick is this texture dry palette. Instead of brushing off the color for the dry brushing on a piece of paper, I crafted this dry texture palette. With this, I can get rid of most of the paint on my dry brush while being able to observe how the paint will look on an uneven surface. This gives me a lot of confidence on dry brushing, as I stopped worrying about smearing too much paint on my Mini. It's even easy to craft. I'll link you a tutorial in the description of the video. Now it is time for the pure white. Funny how armor that is supposed to be white gets such a tiny amount of actual white paint. The areas that would be the most illuminated from the imagined light source above get a tiny dab of pure white to indicate its whiteness. I used dead white of the game color range of Vallejo for this. The guns and metal details on the Mini get covered in the black speed paint 2.0 called Occultist Cloak by the army painter. I really love how this color covers the guns perfectly, and I pondered on leaving them as is. For a quicker paint job, that would perfectly suffice. The exposed skin also got painted with a speed paint 2.0 by the army painter. I picked the rather desaturated color Bony Matter to indicate the sickly skin of the radiation-sick Saar. All the lenses of the visors of the distinguishable Saar helmets got a tiny dab of magic blue from the speed paint 2.0 range. As you may have recognized, I was playing around with all these new speed paints from the 2.0 range. The hair was also painted with speed paint. Fire Drake is the name of the paint. Now we come to the heart of the Imperial Commando paint scheme, the colored armor markings. I picked some colors that I really liked and started marking every model individually. Every model in the gang looks unique. Here you see an example of the yellow markings, painted with the speed paint Maze Yellow, a very cool tone of yellow. This fighter gets red smeary markings where you never really know if it's blood or paint. I wiped almost all of the paint called Slaughter Red off of the brush and went to town smearing it on. These two models are only two samples, by the way. At the end of the video I will show you the whole gang. Clearly it would be impossible to maintain such a shining white armor on Necromunda. It is clearly even a stretch attempting to paint white armor for this game or setting. This means it is time to dirty up our carefully applied white. That means I chipped the white armor with dark brown paint. I picked Rhinox hide from Citadel over a dark grey or black because I wanted to avoid having only black, grey and white on the Mini. This way I could introduce another tone of color. The third trick to painting that I can show you is this chipping pen. Simply take the hollow tube of an old and empty pen, stick a slim length of kitchen sponge into it and trim the top to a sharp end. Ta-da! You have a chipping pen that you can use instead of pincers with a bit of foam. I also painted some small lines on flatter armor panels to indicate dents and scores on the armor. On the guns and metal details I stippled on Lead Belcher by Citadel, a darker metallic paint. This was then followed by a lighter metallic paint which I also stippled on, restricted to the upper parts of the gun. The color is called Ironbreaker and is by Citadel. The paint chips are looking cool, but a bit flat. That's why I highlighted the lower parts of the indicated damage with the same light gray from before. This way they appear more like three-dimensional dents. The same approach was used on the yellow painted armor markings, but with the color Bone White by Vallejo. The tidy up steps begin with tiny white dots on the upper parts of the lenses of the visors. Now they look as if they reflect light and are made of some shiny material. When the armor is impossible to maintain, the guns also get some grime. I applied some rust wash by Vallejo on some spots of the weapons. The red markings of the armor get a tad more eerie for the enemy of the Van Saar gang by adding a bit of Blood for the Blood God technical paint by Citadel over the previous layer of red paint. To indicate the waste on Necromunda and accumulating on even the shiniest and whitest of armor, I oil washed the legs of the model in a dark brown wash. Looking back, I think I could have gone even heavier with the wash and cleaned it up with a streaking effect afterwards. But hey, you're always brighter in hindsight. After basing the models, I call this project finished. I'll now show you the whole gang. It's a whole box of Van Saar gangers with 4 3D printed add-ons. An Arachnirik, an Architect that is currently equipped with a shield, which is against the rules as I learned later, and 2 Cyber Arachnids. You can find the links to the models in the description box of the video. I kinda dig the paint job, but I also am not super happy with it. I think the Imperial Commando paint scheme really came out well. But I am not sure how much it fits a grimdark setting like Necromunda. I'll keep them like that and play some games to see how I feel about them. What do you think about this project? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, and I will see you in the next video. Have a precious hobby time.